Welcome to Paint It Kids Studio, where we make amazing art videos. Hit that subscribe button and ring that bell so you can be notified every time we post a new art video.
Hey guys, welcome back to Paint It Kids. This is Miss Jessica. Today we're going to be doing something a little different. Now usually I do cute little critters or fun characters or even sometimes show off my own illustrative work. But today we're going to do something a little different, and we're going to in a way illustrate, but we're going to focus on a portrait. Now I know that Miss Kate has done a couple self-portrait videos, so I thought it'd be kind of fun to show you guys portraits that I like to do when I'm feeling a little bit in a creative rut. Kind of gets me out of my mindset and takes me in a different direction. And the great thing about this is you're only focusing on shape. So you're not focusing on line, you're not focusing on shadow, you're not focusing on anything but shape. So it's a great way to decompress and to just have fun again. So I'm going to be working in Photoshop today. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to find a subject. So instead of picking one of my family members or just a random picture off the internet, I decided that I wanted to do a modern portrait of Miss Kate. Now, because we are limited on time, I will only be doing Miss Kate's face, but if you would like to see the full video, you guys can head on over to paintitkids.tv, where we will have a full-length video from start to finish of the complete portrait. But in this tutorial, we're just going to be showing you guys how to do the head. Alright, so let's get started. So like I said, we're just going to be focusing on shape. So I have a picture here of Miss Kate. Look at this. And I'm also going to be working from a couple different photos. Just because anytime you do a portrait, especially a modern portrait, it's always nice just to get a couple photos because you get different angles of shape. So I just grabbed my rough brush here and I'm just going to sketch out my face. Now, I'm not focusing on eyes, I'm not focusing on nose, I'm not focused on anything. All I am focused on is the shape of her face. So I'm just going to kind of start out like I usually do with anytime I'm drawing a character or any of my other work that I do, kind of an underdrawing approach. But like I said before, I'm just looking on the shape of her face. So I'm looking at this picture here that is actually dropped into my Photoshop, and then this family portrait of Miss Kate and her beautiful family here. And to really get the shape, I'm not focused on, oh, this is a face. I'm just looking at, okay, where does the jawline go? Where does her cheek come in? What shape is her hair making as it lays across her cheek? Because it's giving it this roundness look right around the apple of her cheek there, but her cheek isn't that round. It's just her hair, the way her hair is falling, that's giving it this illusion of super roundness. So I'm trying to decide if I want to just keep this completely, let the hair do the work, or if I want this shape to portray that completely. Alright, so I feel that's pretty good, so I'm just going to fill it in so that way I can fill in the complete color. Now, if you're new to this, a good way to do this is you can fill it in, and what you can actually do, especially if you're working in Photoshop, or if you're working on regular paper, you can use tracing paper just to get started, but you can actually take your drawing and you can lay it over top your photograph just to double check and make sure that the face shape is correct. Because even though we're going to just be working with simple shapes, this is still going to look like Miss Kate when we're done. So I can just place it over here and see if it matches up. And it looks pretty good to me. Maybe just a little variations like in the jawline maybe, but other than that, I just took down the opacity too just so I could see through it and make sure that, I wasn't, this darker color kind of blends in with her hair and all that other stuff. So I'm just going to get rid of the extra fluff, but I did make sure to draw this shape into her hair because the hair's going to lay on top, so I don't want to stop it before the hair because I want to be able just to lay the hair flush on top and not have to worry about putting the face color up through the hair. It'll already be that way because I'm making it more of an oval where the hair can sit. So now that I have the face shape here, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pick her skin tone. Now, if you're just working with crayons or colored pencils or something, you can pick, whatever skin tone matches your subject. But the nice thing about Photoshop is I can take the eyedropper tool and I can just go right into that mid-tone and I can just pick up what her skin color is. And Miss Kate has a really nice, beautiful peachy skin tone. So I'm just going to pick that up, and then I'm going to lock this layer, and then I'm going to color it with my hard mechanical. So with this one, I'm just using a hard mechanical. And as I continue doing this, what I really like to do is I like to just lay down the shape and then use my eraser and take away. Because when we draw, we tend to kind of get it in our heads that there's like a correct way to do it, and so we're kind of afraid to make mistakes, or we just kind of get in this programmed mindset of what we should and shouldn't do. But by simplifying this down just to the basic shape, it allows us to kind of see things differently. It's kind of like when you were in middle school and you were in your art class and they told you, like, hey, draw this picture, but draw it upside down. And you would draw it upside down and you no longer saw it as a cowboy riding a horse or a face. It was just an upside down image. It's kind of the same concept. We're breaking it down, we're keeping it simple. And this is a great way to just let your artist's mind be exercised. And I know that sounds really weird, but when you're first learning to draw, you kind of have to program your brain to see shapes and not objects. All right, so now I'm going to, I just used the eyedropper tool and grabbed her hair color, and now I'm just laying it out. I'm not even trying to make it beautiful or pretty. I'm just trying to get the basic shape down. So I'm just looking on the way that it falls on her face, the way it goes, and you can see that I'm already overlapping on the oval face shape that I made. And Miss Kate does have curly hair, but she doesn't have super crazy curly hair. So I'm trying to decide exactly how I want to exaggerate that, because I don't want it to be, I don't want to just lay it over the top and then just trace around her hair and call it good, because that's not as pretty. So you can still take creative liberties. You can still have tons of fun with this, even though we're just using just the basic form of this portrait here. And when it comes to taking this approach, you can still use design. You can still make it look pretty. You can still make interesting, fun shapes. And let me tell you, I love anytime I do a portrait for somebody and a person has curly hair. It is one of the funnest parts of doing a modern portrait like this. And what's really great too is you can do your entire family this way. This is a great way just to practice, to really just kind of shut your mind off, but also still create art. And it also gets you into good habits too, because even when you're drawing more complicated things, you don't want to program your brain to see the image as your brain sees it. So for example, if I was going to draw a tree, my brain would say, oh, this is a tree, draw a tree. And our brain has a specific tree in mind that's already programmed there. So if I instead think I'm going to draw this tree, but here are the shapes that are in the tree, it allows our brain to simplify it, and then you're no longer letting your brain do the drawing, you're letting your hand do the drawing. Because there's just sometimes, when you're drawing and for whatever reason you just can't get it down, you're just so aggravated, you're just like, why aren't you making this shape? Sometimes it's just our brain is getting in the way, and that sounds really funny, but very much the truth. Okay, so now that I have the basic shape down, now I'm going to go in and I'm going to kind of look between the pictures that I have. And I mainly used this picture here that I have dropped in Photoshop just because I really like the way her hair lays in this, because you can really see her curls and see up close. In the portrait family, the family portrait of her and her family, it's a little bit harder to see just because it's not a high resolution image. The better you can actually see your subject's faces, the better off you're going to be. So now I'm going to kind of just put in some parts of the hairline in. Like, I don't want to just do a boring straight line because it's going to look really weird, because we are just using simplified shapes. And if a shape looks funny, play around with it, erase it, and, add to it. And that's one of the reasons I really like doing this in Photoshop, is because you can, erase and add, and you can really play around with your color. And you'll notice that I'm getting up close, I'm looking, I'm making a decision, I'm adding a little color, or I'm taking away, and then after I add something and I'm like, okay, that looks pretty good, I'm zooming out. So the reason I'm doing this is because I'm comparing. We don't want to get tunnel vision. If we get tunnel vision, we're going to start making shapes and making choices, and if we don't back up, we might realize after a little while that the move that we made was a wrong one. And so you end up, luckily with Photoshop we can do Control Z, but in real life when you're doing a painting, you don't want to get tunnel vision, because then the tree you've been working on for 3 hours, you back up and realize it's all wrong. So it's always good to step back even when you're working with simple shapes. So with the hair, I do have the hair on a separate layer. So the head is on its own layer, and then the hair is on another layer, just so that way I can freely add and take away as needed. And as you're focusing on shape, you want to also, especially when it comes to hair, because hair has so much depth to it, because there's, all these little pieces of hair, and then with the way the light touches it, there's so many lights, there's so many darks, so sometimes it's kind of hard to see exactly which direction the hair is actually falling, because our eyes will see a lighter piece of hair and be like, oh, this is where it's falling, when in fact it really isn't falling in that exact way. As a full body, it's falling a different direction. So when you do simplify hair, it is always best just to not just focus on like one chunk or lock of hair, but to kind of look at it as a whole. And a good tool, too, a little trick that you can do, especially if you're trying not to trace, because this isn't about making it perfect. This is about training our brain to see shapes instead of images, because that's what's going to allow you to be a better artist and allow you to draw quicker and more effectively. So if you're not trying to trace, when you look at something, you can always kind of squint your eyes until it goes blurry, and then you can kind of get an overall feel of what the overall shape is. Because when you kind of squint, you don't want to squint too much to where you don't see anything, but you want to be able to just enough so where all the detail and all those little distractions are kind of taken away. I know my sister, she just wears glasses, so whenever she's trying to figure something out, she'll just take her glasses off, and then she'll be able to kind of get an idea of whether or not the shape is correct or not. So here so I have the main body that I like, and so now this is where I can do all the fun stuff, where I can put the pretty designs in. So I want to put beautiful little curls at the end, and make these really, really fun and appealing shapes. And when you do these, little shapes in the hair like this, or even in anything that you do, it just makes all the difference. You might think, oh, it's not going to matter in the long run. No one's going to notice it. No one's going to see it. But it all plays a part in good design. So if you really focus on your shape and you really try very hard to, every shape you make is intentional and is a part of the design, it'll make your piece even that more appealing. I know with one portrait commission I did, the girl, she had really tight curls, really, really beautiful natural hair. It was absolutely gorgeous. And I made sure that every single curl that I did, because it was such tight curls, I could, just do a bunch of little ends all the way down and called it good. But I really didn't want to do that. I wanted to really design each of the individual curls, and it just turned out absolutely gorgeous, because I was focused on not just shape, but also design. And I'm going to do the same thing with the lips. Now, when it comes to the mouths, what I do these modern portraits is I make sure that I'm not paying too much attention to making everything perfect and symmetrical, because that's not what, even though, we're simplifying and we're doing something more modern, I still like the natural aspect of the human face, and the human face isn't symmetrical. So I'll just line it out, almost kind of like when if you put on lipstick, you just kind of slowly add line on line when you're putting lipstick on your face. I kind of do the same approach with these portraits here. And I just add a little line and do a little more, and I have the pictures side by side because I am actually looking at it. I'm going back and forth, and making sure that everything looks good. And I'm looking at the way that, because the lip isn't like, it's not the same all the way across, it thins as the smile pulls, because that's what skin does, is it pulls and it sags and it does all these different things. So you can still get that with even just simple shape. You can still get that illusion of pull, and just by, making sure that you add a variety of thick and thin. And then I just put a nice white color in for her teeth. And again, with her lips, I just use the eyedropper tool. And I'm actually going to use my transform tool, and I'm just going to tilt it a little bit because I felt like it was a little off. I have the bad habit of tilting my head when I draw, so sometimes things come out a little crooked. And this is another great thing about using Photoshop, is that you're using the simplest things, simplest tools, just for a fun exercise that you're able to, if you're working on something, sometimes your brain gets all foggy and you just need something fun to do. And this is definitely one of those things. And it doesn't have to be a portrait, but the cool thing about this is, anytime somebody's birthday comes around or Christmas comes around, if you just, do this with people and you're looking at the human face, and you're looking at the human form, and you're learning to look for simple shapes, it helps with character design, but then also you have a really cool gift. So for my nose, I'm just doing the outer line. Like, I'm not even worried about the shape of the nose because that's not what's not important, we just want the slightest variation. I like to do my eyes round in this, and if you want to do yours round too, you can. I just like to keep it very, very simple. And I don't want to make her eyes too small, but I don't want to make them too big. So I always have these really nice medium eyes. And anytime I do girls, I always like to add eyelashes, just to give it kind of, like a whimsical quality. So I'll just put two little eyelashes here, just like this. And then I'm going to grab her hair color, and I'm going to place her eyebrows because she looks really, really weird without eyebrows. So I just use my eyedropper tool, and I'm just going to sketch that out. Now, when it comes to eyebrows, I just look at the picture and I try to just follow the natural shape of the person's eyebrow. I try not to go too crazy with it, just because, it is so simple. You're not adding line, you're not adding shadow. So you don't want your subject to feel angry or surprised. So I just try to follow the natural shape of the eyebrow, but if I have to tilt it or change it up a little bit just so that they look a little happier, I will. There's this one client that I had, he had really, really bushy eyebrows, and if I would have just done the shape that they were, he would have looked very angry in the picture. So I just took some creative liberty and tilted it a little bit just so he looked a little bit more jolly. Now, the good thing about Photoshop here is I have one eyebrow done, and I actually really like the way it turns out. So I'm just going to take my lasso tool, I'm going to hit my option button, and by using the lasso tool, hitting the option key, I can actually copy and paste it. And there we go. And then I'm just going to flip it, and then I'm going to rotate it, and I'm going to make it exactly the way that I want it. There we go. Make it look good. There we go. And then I don't have to worry about, putting the eyebrow in because I just really like the way that one turned out. So now I'm going back and I'm just double checking and then making sure that I'm happy with that hairline. How's the distance between the eyebrows and the forehead? Am I comfortable with it? Do I like it? Do I not like it? How's that hair falling across her cheek? Is it looking good? So I'm just going through and I'm just doing little cleanups. And, once I have that down, I'm just going to put a little line to where her chin is. There we go. And I always like to add a little bit of redness to the face because the cheeks are really red. So I'm going to do that. And I just use an airbrush just so that way it gets it all nice and just soft. I'm going to do some on the nose too because that's where all the blood flows good. So I'm just taking one last looking back and forth, that even though this is modern and we're working with shapes, it looks like Miss Kate, and I'm actually pretty happy with it. So we are all done here. Thanks so much for joining me today. And like I said, if you want to see all of this portrait of Miss Kate, you can head on over to paintedkids.tv, and I will also be drawing Miss Kate's dog Mumford in the portrait as well, just to give you guys an example of how you can do a modern portrait with animals as well and get a good idea of just simple shapes. Thanks so much for watching, you guys. And if you like this video, then go ahead and give this video a thumbs up. And if you want to see more fun videos just like this one, then head on over to our channel and check out everything else that we have. Thanks so much for watching, you guys, and we'll see you next time.